I'm Maureen Sasscer. My script is heard.
Okay, thank you. Gina?
Hi, I'm Gina DeAngelis, and my script is called Private Thompson's Secret War.
Okay, thank you. Helen?
Hi, my name's Helen Taylor. I'm a scriptwriter here in the UK, and my script is called Warpaint.
Thank you. And Sam?
Hi, my name is Sam Jeurgens, and I wrote The Hardest Hit.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Okay, so Maureen, you're on the hot seat first. That sounded worse than it was.
I'm a little nervous.
Okay, nothing to be nervous about. You wrote a fabulous script. So if you can give, if possible, a 1 or 2 sentence description of the story.
The story is about a rape victim named Allie Saunders who was raped and left for dead. She decides she wants to take the judicial system to court, and so she kidnaps a judge and gives a day for the victims to give them a voice.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's start with what inspired you, what brought you into this kind of story?
Well, sometimes we write from things we know. So my sister was kidnapped and raped by a habitual offender. And he actually made it out to do whatever he was going to do again. So, and I have a friend whose niece has, she was kidnapped, raped, and murdered by a habitual offender. And both of these offenders had been out, they'd been in jail more than once. And oddly, the one that did the murder is not coming out. But the one that kidnapped my sister, he only served 17 years. And she was 13. Oh. And he got more time for kidnapping and grand theft auto than he did for her. So it's a system that needed to be highlighted.
Yes.
So that's what I was trying to do.
Yes, and you did a very good job. The perceptions of specific judges, but the court overall does seem still to lean that, oh, it's not that bad. You know, he shouldn't be punished too harshly. You know, she only just had a couple of bruises or some other garbage like that. Is that what you've encountered, or? Well,
I mean, I think that people don't realize that it's not really the physical damage that it does to these victims, and they're men, women, children, but it's the fact that they know if they bother, because only a small percentage go to court, most of them get pled out, and then that's how they're out so easily. But if they really commit to taking them to court, the victim is on trial, not the convicted. And it doesn't matter, because usually their previous records for one reason or the other get discounted. So the victim has to live through that, and then they have to hear the sentencing, which is just, it doesn't equate the crime. But the criminal can go to jail, service time, get out again, do it again. The victim, it doesn't leave them. And if they have the strength and the dedication to try to go and get help and try to get past it, or move forward, not get past it, but move forward, it's with them forever.
Yes.
They're 100% when they were little, feeling it was safe to walk around. As you get older, it goes down to 60, and it diminishes completely when something like this happens. So anyway, you wanted to give a voice to the victims and let them know they were heard.
Yes, and again, it captures the frustration and brings a lot of things into light very beautifully. You did a magnificent job with that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to leap over to you, Gina.
Okay.
You
I wasn't sure if you were going to ask me something or if I should just start talking.
Oh, no, I'm afraid I'm going to ask you something. So,
okay.
Well, let's start with as short as you can, a synopsis of the story.
Okay. My script, Private Thompson's Secret War, was actually my first screenplay. It's been rewritten 500 times, I feel like. But it was my first script, and I got into screenwriting because this is based on a true story, an actual woman, and I feel that her story deserves to be heard. She was a teenager, and she sought independence to make her own living in the 1850s by becoming a man named Frank Thompson, and she started being a bookseller, enlisted in the Union Army during the Civil War, early enough that the physical exam didn't detect anything strange. She became a medic and then a spy, and served for more than 2 years without being detected as a woman. She deserted before they detected her, wrote a book about her experience, published it, and then went back to the front in a dress to serve out the rest of the war as a nurse.
Oh, wow.
But 20 years later, she wanted to get a veteran's pension, which she was entitled to. And in order to verify that she had served, because she was living as a married woman with children at this point, she had to go back and find all her comrades and say, hey, remember me? And she did. She actually got a combat veteran's pension from the U.S. government.
Oh, that's awesome. That's
So,
great. Yeah.
yeah.
So how did you come across this story?
I've always had an interest in the Civil War. I grew up about an hour from Gettysburg.
Wow.
And I was just reading about her in my, I don't want to say how old I am now, but it was in my early 20s.
Well, that's what's remarkable is I think all of us have come up against this, that there's history and then there's reality, because what we're taught, there's so much that is not mentioned or discovered. So women fighting, or this particular woman, and I'm assuming she wouldn't be the only one,
No.
is totally hidden in our history books. So,
Well, there were something like 600 women that we know about who fought either in disguise or were discovered out of more than 180,000. Actually, 180,000 is how many black troops there were. I think it was closer to 600,000
right.
or 1 million. So it's really like such a tiny percentage. I'm not surprised it's not in history books because I'm a history educator, but it certainly deserves a movie.
Yeah, very much. And again, your script moves very quickly. There's a lot of excitement and drama, and her turning into a spy it turns out to be real, but as a writer, it's a great twist. And sometimes you can't beat reality for some of the twists that come up.
I mostly write historical scripts, so I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. You're this really happened? Yeah, so that's great. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on, but thank you very much. I'm coming back. So, Helen?
Hi.
Okay, so another historical drama, this set in, go ahead.
Ooh.
I'm sorry, please. You tell us about it.
That's okay. So yeah, my script is called Warpaint, and it's set in Edwardian London, which was the beginning of the 20th century. And my female lead, Tilly Tompkins, she's always wanted to be a singer on the stage. She escapes an abusive home life. She makes her way to London, and she finds success. She achieves her dream, but in doing so, she sees a lot of the abuse that's being exerted on other performers, particularly chorus girls, by the powerful male theatre owners, and she decides that she's got to do something about it. So she successfully organises a strike by both performers and theatre workers. And forces the theatre owners to revise both their working contracts and conditions, pay, and also their behaviour. Tilly recognises that she's in quite a powerful position now, so she decides to step away from performing and set up her own theatrical agency so that she can represent these young women in the chorus and achieve better working conditions for them.
Thank you. It's an amazing story. Now, is this based on some truth?
Well, at around the time when I was developing my story ideas, there was a lot in the media about the start of the Me Too movement. There were lots of young actresses and young women in the entertainment industry talking about their experiences, and my research showed me that in fact this has been going on since women started performing. And so I thought that by using a period setting, I could sort of link the past with what's going on today.
Yes. And it was a very effective way to do it, because if it's modern, right now people, oh, here we go again. But by bringing it back to the 1800s, it totally changes. You know, you do go, oh my God, this has never really changed. Where 100 years later, we're still doing this stuff.
Absolutely.
So it's beautifully done. Now, in terms of your research, this would be to my tiny little mind, in terms of history, I don't quite know. The union, I mean, this would have been one of the first. Do you?
Yes. So in London in 1907, there was what was called the Music Hall Wars. And what was happening was that theatre workers and performers were both being tied into very onerous contracts. They felt that they weren't being fairly represented or paid, and that the theatre owners had a complete monopoly. So they did organise a strike, which was very successful, and the audiences really got behind the strike, which was actually what brought about the success of the strike.
I'm glad to hear that, and surprised. Usually audiences just sit back and wait, so that's nice.
No. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. And this is reminiscent, the description of what happened with the movies, where suddenly
absolutely,
they're going, wow, it's all slave labor, let's change this. And so it happened in 1907, you said.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah. So there is hope.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you created a great character where it was an interesting way to go, because I'm hearing something again. An interesting way to go with the she's successful. As opposed to someone who's downtrodden, and you have her successful, and then using that success, she goes, wait a minute, and helps others, which is an unusual approach, I thought. And I thought you handled that well.
Yeah, and again, that was partly based on real events. My research also led me to a number of music hall actresses of the time who did care passionately about both actresses' rights and women's rights. Some were involved in the suffragette movement, which was just coming around at that time, and they did actually move into both theatre production, and also they became theatrical agents. So this was a time in history when women's rights were really coming to the fore and asserting themselves. And it was a time of great social change for women.
It was. Thank you. And again, you capture the tone and the mood of that fabulously. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Sam, please tell us about the hardest hit.
Yes, sir. Yeah, thank you. First of all, I mean, it's incredible to hear some of these stories, and I'm humbled to be a part of this festival. I'm sure there's a lot of other good scripts that aren't on this same call, but I just want to say thanks again. But the hardest hit, it's about a story after a star college quarterback at a win-at-all-cost university is accused of sexual battery. An inexperienced attorney persuades her client to reject a large settlement deal and take the case to trial. It is inspired by, sadly inspired by too many true events in the collegiate athlete world. We continue to hear stories. I mean, just this weekend, Deshaun Watson. It's all these women come out against him, and for the longest time, it's like he's innocent, nothing happened. And then all of a sudden, he's like, okay, some of it was consensual, but I mean, it continues to happen. And so my story, I wanted to kind of put it in the sports world with a tough subject of sexual assault. I mean, Maureen, your story, that's pretty intimate there. So I mean, it continues to happen. So I just wanted to kind of do my part to kind of give a voice to the voiceless. So, well, that's the hardest bit.
I did like the approach of a very important, the whole culture of our attitude about rape is horrendous as a culture. But it's worse, I believe, with the idea that a sports star, because they're good earners or they're famous or whatever, can get away with so much more. And again, it's like, oh, well, why is she so bothered? What's the big deal? And your script really was able to bring that forward. And I hope it's realistic, and a spoiler alert, but it's a script, so hopefully. But just, I liked it that the player's life is badly impacted by the trial, which I really hope is true in real life. But it's hard to watch. You just brought up a couple where, they're going to go on just fine because the money behind them is just going to steamroll.
Right. Yeah, that's so in the script, there's a board of regents, and they're kind of like puppet masters behind the scenes.
Yes.
The trial, the players. So I wanted to kind of put a little, not conspiracy theory, but a little added texture to the script and the story. And so I also grew up from PA, 15 minutes from Gettysburg. So, but
small circle here, huh?
But so I'm very familiar with, the Joe Paterno and the Jerry Sandusky from Penn State. So, and I was baffled because for the longest time, people were at odds. They were divided about the statue of Joe Paterno outside the stadium. Someone had torn down. Some were like, he did so much good for this school. That needs to stay there. So, it continues to be not only in the sports world, but a lot of other areas and industries. And it continues to be everywhere. So,
yes. And again, your script and Maureen's in this particular thing, but all your scripts need to be out there to help raise the consciousness, and people start going, wait, what? Because if it doesn't happen to you, you don't think it's going to happen, and you can look at someone else. Someone else falls on the sidewalk, and in a movie that could be funny, but meanwhile they break their hip. Lots of stuff can go on. The ramifications of sexual assault are mind-boggling. It hits the victim, the family of the victim. The ripples go on, and people just want to go, oh, come on, why are you making such a big deal? And your scripts really grab people by the lapels, and I hope get out there to help raise that consciousness about that particular subject. So very good work. Excellent.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So now, Maureen, we'll start with you in the sense of if you want to talk about more details about this script, or if you have other projects that you're working on.
This was the most serious one that I've done. And I only did it because I needed time to do it. But I'm usually a comedy writer. I like redemption. I like find out. You can't know from reading this. But So I'm working, and I needed a comedy after this. I've written 2 TV series, written some plays, but I like scripts. And I do have a sci-fi type script that, again, not a genre that I write in, but you know how it is. All the writers know that when a thought comes to you, then it starts going down its own little path. And, like I did a murder mystery, which I thought the main murder that I was working on was it. Turns out that was the first 10 minutes of the movie, and then it went in a completely different direction. And it's like you can't explain to people that don't love to write, you really don't have any control over it. It just kind of, oh, but what if this happened? And the next thing you know, that's where it's going. And sometimes you don't reel it back because it's down a different path, but you kind of like it. So right now I have 3 sisters that are fighting. It's about weddings. And one of them doesn't know. I'll just give a little spoiler. One of them's already married and the other 2 don't know. And she's the youngest one, and they think she's the most irresponsible. But as this thing unwraps, she's the most responsible one in the group. So it's a lot of fun. I like fun.
Yeah.
I like laughing.
Especially after a script like that, yes.
Oh, yes.
Well, one of the things that I was going to capture on, and we'll finish with you on this, is people who are watching this, hopefully, there will be a lot of non-writers. I find that either the story or the characters, it's like you think you're in charge and suddenly go, no, I'm not going to do that. Do you find that as it really starts evolving that you're just the typist?
I am just the typist, and I do steal from people. Like if I find myself they're all starting to look generic, because when you're writing, you see the movie. So you see all the characters, and if I'm missing something, that's the terrible thing. I think that's why most of us write in public and go to Starbucks, because we see the people walking in, we write the story in our head to who they are and what's going on, and they could be mad at somebody else, but it kind of looks like they're mad at each other. So, and then you look at them, you look at their stance, you look at their mannerism, you steal it, you put it down, but I do that everywhere I go. Sure. And if I hear a line, if I'm in the grocery store and I hear somebody say something that is just absolutely inappropriate or just wrong, I'm going home and writing that. Sometimes I just walk over and get my phone, leave the line, get my phone, write it, because you're going to forget, but you need it. Yeah. And as I'm writing this comedy, I'm actually doing something I've never done. I know the beginning and I know how it ends, but I really want some very serious comedic situations. So I'm just writing installments. I'm writing little sections and then I'm weaving them in the end. But I have all these funny little mishaps that happen. And some of them, I've borrowed from real life. I've had to fess up to people before they read this, and I've done it. I've done it. That I may have taken one or two real life situations, but I like them. They're funny. So they're mine.
Neil Simon cried all the way to the bank writing his life, so.
My favorite writer. My favorite. I actually went to see him at his Mark Twain Award because I love him.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He's a person, he takes a magnifying glass to a real life everyday situation.
And makes it interesting somehow. I couldn't do that. I need explosions when I write. I just Okay. Thank you very much. It's a great script and I look forward to your other stuff. So, Gina, kind of the same question. If you have, other projects, and do characters write you? You write them?
I do write other material. I actually have been, my only real job all my adult life has been as a freelance writer. So I started writing nonfiction for young people and young adults and young readers. I've also worked in educational media where we make, videos and web games and TV episodes, educational TV episodes, mostly based on history, but other stuff as well. So I find a lot of inspiration from real life stories that happened, but you also, you can be as accurate as you want, but a lot of people forget. You also have to be accurate with what you're saying about it. So you can take liberties with the buttons people are wearing or the costumes or who said what to whom, but if what you're saying is essentially incorrect, then that's the kind of inaccuracy that bugs me the most, which is completely tangential. I don't know how to answer whether I write characters or they write themselves. I think in the best case, if you know them that well, they start talking on their own.
Exactly.
So I've not had them sort of take over the story for me, but I have had them come out with dialogue that I never would have written on my own, that I feel like someone else was saying that stuff. And that's really magical. That's a feeling that you just chase the rest of your life, I think.
I agree.
I did write, interestingly, based on what Maureen says, I do write historical stuff, but it's mostly family-friendly, 4-quadrant kind of adventure type things. There's not a lot of sex, and I wrote some war movies, but they're not gory. But I did write a very adult murder mystery just recently that's doing pretty well right now. It's set in a medieval convent, and I was challenged I read some screenwriting guru's book who said, there's no way to make nuns interesting. And I was like, you're full of shit, and I'm going to prove it.
Was thrown.
So that's a lot of fun. But I've written comedy as well. I don't think I'm funny enough to persist with that. I'm not sure what else you want to know, so I'll just climb up and let the others talk.
No, you encapsulated it beautifully. Thank you. That was wonderful stuff. Thank you. Okay. I'm sorry, Helen?
Yeah, so I've just finished another script, actually, another feature film script. And the way it came about was I was watching a TV program, and it was about... it was set in Venice, and it was about the fact that Vivaldi, the composer, he had been a teacher at an orphanage run by nuns, a nun theme.
There's a small world right here, you guys.
Absolutely, yeah, in the 18th century. And so I thought, and so the little orphan girls, they were left at the orphanage, and when they were 9, they all were taught music by Vivaldi, and some sang, and those that were good at string instruments played string instruments. You know, they all found their niche. And then they performed in the beautiful concerts that attracted the rich and famous from Venice and across Europe to go and listen to them. And I thought, wow, I didn't know anything about that. That would make a great story. So I did my research, and of course, it makes a good story, and there have already been about 5 films about that very subject, and endless novels, including some. Yeah. So I thought, I still think this is interesting. I still think there's an angle. So I thought, okay, let's. I seem to quite like taking these historic storylines and finding a sort of a modern parallel. So I've woven a modern story of a young woman in Venice who finds herself on hard times and uses a musical talent to basically find her way forward. Mm-hmm. But I've interlaced it with the 18th century little girl growing up in the orphanage, being taught to play the violin, playing in the concerts, etc., etc. And the common thread throughout the 2 stories is the violin. It's a particular violin that
I see. Smart.
that yeah. So and I did find that I did find that it started to write me. I would have to say.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people think you just sit down and, but you're staring at a white piece of paper, and you do need that help of the inspiration hitting you upside the head, or Stephen King phrases it a little more graphically, so I won't go there, but just, you need that muse to come to you sometimes. But fabulous work. Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you.
Sam, please.
Yeah. So yeah, I have other stuff going on. I do have one project that's it has a Emmy-nominated producer attached. I wrote a Milton Hershey biopic, and that was quite an experience working with the Hershey companies, because we got an agreement with them. So we worked with close archives, which was fascinating because we found out a ton of stuff that doesn't reside in the public domain.
I'm sorry to interrupt here with Sam, but I'm from Hershey, and my whole family worked for the factory for decades. So that's pretty
awesome.
Interesting. But go ahead. It's been to be on the Titanic,
I'm sorry?
Milton Hershey was supposed to be on the Titanic.
Believe me, I know, and we did try to. I don't want to say too much, but we tried to figure out a way to kind of embrace that. But anyway, it's certainly, we broached the subject in our screenplay. But so yeah, we got some good momentum. We feel good about the script, and it's been awesome working with Joanne, my producer. But so we're excited, and that's one thing we got going. I often collaborate with my brother. So we've written a couple things together, and before we met the producer attached to Hershey, we co-wrote that it was a like this adventure suspense thriller, and we were getting ready to shop it around, and like a week before we decided to shop it around, Netflix came out with the show, and the first 2 minutes was a line by line exact replica of what we came up with. And I mean, it was a limited series, but so we had to put that way. There was too many similarities, but so anyway, that, and then I'm also working on another biopic on a former celebrity from the golden age of Hollywood.
Cool, very cool. So
yeah,
you can actually bring a different perspective to this, because I can say it nicely, but I'm terrible writing with other people. I just have no skill set at all. Just shoot me, and you know. So you're with your brother, and so the question is, when all of us kind of agree that the stories or the characters start writing you, how does that work with two people? Is there conflict, or does it flow?
Both. So both is the short answer, but so it's taken us a little bit to get to the level of compromise, but I think our rule now is the best idea wins. So whether we're coming up with characters, stories, dialogue, it just so yeah, the best idea wins. I mean, and it's when it's just the two of us, then it's a 50-50. Well, I have the best idea. No, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Well, that's great. That's great. Well, I want to thank you all for a very fun time just now, and for great scripts that you submitted. And I hope that they reach success and get out into the world, because they're entertaining and important stuff to get out into our consciousness. So thank you guys very, very much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
I'm talking today with one of our official selections in the script writing, Jael Martens, who wrote Hardjack. Hi, Jael.
Hi.
How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm just spiffy, thanks. So you submitted an action film called Hardjack, which I loved. What inspired you to go after a story like that? And give us some details on the story, if you don't mind.
It's a story about a antisocial ex-special forces badass who's forced back into action, or has to make that decision whether to be forced back into action after a group of cosplay kids land on her doorstep in dire need because they're being chased by a psycho drug dealer.
Yeah, fabulous.
And the reason sorry.
No, please go ahead. When in doubt, talk.
I was going to say the reason that I created the character of Tall Lady, which is where they landed, is because I wanted a hard-ass, realistic hero versus the extra beautiful, with no muscle tone person that's supposed to kick everybody's ass in the movies that I see. And I got the idea from a friend who was complaining about that exact thing, and I agreed. I think she's right. I wanted somebody real and gritty.
Gotcha, and you captured that. And also the idea of the ex-forces, and I told you before, I love the reluctant hero, where she really does not want to help these kids. Leave me alone, And
Exactly.
the way she's drawn into it is really beautifully drawn. Fuck. I got thrown. It's my fault. You're doing great.
No worries. Let's just say that kids aren't her thing. Kids are not her thing. So that makes it a little hard. As she says, teenagers are like a pimple on my ass, something of that sort.
Exactly. And what you do with them, I like, because they are a pimple on her butt, caused her lots of trouble. But at the same time, you give them aspects of rising to the occasion in a fantasy where they thought about doing this in a fantasy, so now they have a chance to do it in real life.
Exactly. Exactly. And it is not cosplay land, it's life and death. And some of them deal much better than others. I mean, just like real life, some people deal better than others.
Exactly. And the bad guys are nicely delineated. You have smart and stupid and, a lot of great, sharp dialogue, both with the good guys and the bad guys. Do you find that you like to move the story forward with dialogue?
Dialogue is my favorite thing, and it comes really easy because the people, once I've created the people or they've created themselves, they just speak, and the words just flow, and they come from the different types of people that they are, so that the dialogue is different, and what they are thinking and feeling is different than each other. I mean, that's the tricky part to make happen. And the villains, I like to make the villains interesting because they think they're the good guys in their world, and shouldn't be boring.
It's true. And one thing I loved about Hardjack is that there's a lot of writers out there that are famous for their dialogue. Everyone goes, oh, they're so great at their dialogue. And I find a lot of the characters, it's because the actor is doing it differently, but the writing of it, they're very similar. And I found with Hardjack, it was very delineated. You had them talking in different vernaculars. I liked that a lot.
Thank you. They bring it to life all by themselves, I swear.
No. Yeah. And do you ever hit those points where you're going to do something and the character says no?
Absolutely. I mean, I had written off a character that I was going to sacrifice, so to speak, and another character stepped forward and said, hell no. Nope, it's me. And I said, nope. And they said, yes. And we had this argument, and they win.
Yeah.
Because, what am I going to do?
Exactly. They do win. You like to pretend you're in control, but those characters come along, and it's like, okay, I'm out of this.
Exactly. Hey, this is how I want me to be. I mean, they get to decide, in a way, what they're doing. Obviously.
Well, isn't it, for me, it is a lot like a very truncated parenthood, where when you first come up with them, they're malleable, they're young, they're you can kind of do what you want, and then after they come into the teenage years of your writing, suddenly they have all the opinions.
Perfect analogy. Exactly. I mean, when they're first born, they're like, okay, what do you want us to do? Exactly. And then it's like, hey, man, we're doing what we want. Puff, puff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. Another thing I wanted to do in this was deal with the issue of tropes. I mean, they kind of irritate me a lot. So I made an attempt to go against tropes at times, and I made it a running sort of gag almost throughout the thing where they're talking about it. So that was fun.
Yes. For other people, can you define what you mean by tropes?
Well, look, they must be running through the woods, somebody must fall type of shit, and, girl, and the good guy must always be good and not do anything that someone might take as not a good idea. Because it's not nice.
Exactly.
Like, this is life and death, okay? Sometimes you do not nice things to survive.
Exactly.
So.
And again, the way you made Hardjack appear to be so callous And it was only because she just didn't want to get involved, so that by the end, she has, she's just a mush pile, basically.
Well, it's that dog, old Tinkerbell. Her heart just goes bump, bump.
Exactly. And yeah,
No, I never thought of her as callous. I mean, she's a person who went through a lot of shit and, a lot of stuff, and so, and doesn't deal with young people a whole lot. So, and her life has been hard.
Exactly. No, I thought I said appear callous in the sense that her initial reaction is leave me alone.
Right.
Which most people would say is, well, you're not very nice. Where she's just wanting to take care, of herself. She's hurting, right?
Right. Exactly. It's not that she says leave me alone and slams the door in anybody's face, but it's just that she's thinking about it.
Exactly. And you captured her impatience with them beautifully. Where
Thanks.
she's trying to corral them, and you see her teeth grinding. Do you find that story kind of starts it and then the characters take over, or did you start with the characters?
I always start with characters. I name them and they come to life. And sometimes I take aspects of real people and blend them, and sometimes they're just born out of nothing. Mm-hmm. And then as it goes along, they morph into beings that they want to be. And then they take me for a ride. It's quite a fun ride.
Yeah, again, they turn into those teenagers, and where's the hot rides? We're going.
Exactly. Yep.
You had another official selection a couple years ago, right?
Yes, I did. Steampunk Pirate.
Yeah, and that was a hoot. And another strong female lead.
Always.
Yeah.
I always like a strong female lead of an uncertain age.
Yes, and not built so that she has to look good in a bikini. She's tough.
Oh, God. Exactly. They're, I like to say real as versus Hollywood glam.
Exactly.
Because that's what I want to see.
Right. That's what we have to do. We have to create the product that we want to see, and hopefully it starts influencing the powers that be.
Exactly. That's why I love your film festival, because that's what you're about. And I felt like it's a place I could actually submit my stuff, because it's one of the few that actually respects that aspect that I promote.
Cool. Well, we're so glad that you did. Thank you so much, and thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dylan, and I wrote Undercard.
Go ahead.
Hi, everybody. I'm Thoren Syndergaard, and I wrote Ripley of Valor.
Hi, my name is Johanna Juntunen, and I wrote female boxing script Feather.
Hello, my name is Tishia Malone, and I wrote Between the Flames.
Okay, you guys rock. Thank you so much. Okay, so Dylan, we'll start with you. A brief, if you can, synopsis or description of what you wrote, and then I'll start pelting you with silly questions. Go for it.
All right. Well, Undercard is about an MMA fighter who can't afford to fight, who gets sucked into a drug deal to raise the money and ends up framed for murder.
Excellent. And it's a fabulous script, and it just goes by gangbusters. So one of the things I noticed was that, the setting is the MMA, and while there's a touch on it, most of the incredible action is nothing to do with the MMA. What inspired that, and why did you go forth with that?
Well, when I was originally coming up with the idea, it was with the idea that we would actually shoot the thing. And we had a lot of different places and sequences in mind that we really liked. And there's a kind of fascination I have with professional fighters. I know a few, and sort of their ability to navigate through tough situations. And in this particular case, I really wanted a protagonist that the audience would relate to and understand that she could handle herself in a fight, but the thugs and criminals that she would meet might underestimate her and therefore think that they would have a fighting chance, which they discover the hard way they don't.
Yes, and I liked how you did establish her skills early on by being an MMA fighter, and then it just extrapolates from there very, very well. Also, would there be any considerations in terms of shooting where it's harder access, if you will, to MMA than an alley where you can shoot guerrilla style? Was that at all a consideration?
Very much so in this particular case. When when I was writing it, it was with the idea that we would be producing it. And so immediate production constraints became a script right away. Having access to the full MMA rings and the full roster of MMA fighters was something that was simply outside of our range. And so that sort of drove our creativity to make this something we felt that was achievable, that we could actually shoot, but still had enough action and enough excitement that would engage an audience.
Exactly. It was beautifully done. It's funny how, again, necessity, which we're going to talk about later, sometimes you get really creative when you have limited resources. Thank you very much, Dylan. Thoren, same thing, a brief description, and then I'll pelt you.
Yeah, my protagonist is a 17-year-old girl. She's the only child of legendary parents who are deceased early on in the story. Now, her ambition is to be the first female soldier in the military in this fictitious country of Valor, which is in the 1500s medieval Europe. So that you can imagine that goes against all societal norms. So there's many issues along the way.
Got it. Thank you. What inspired a female lead? The whole concept of a female wanting to be a soldier back in that time. Was there anything specific, or?
There's been a lot of struggles, honestly, through the centuries and millennia for women in society.
Sure.
They've had their share of struggles. And this, I guess I wanted to pick this time as an example of what a feisty, strong-willed, mentally and physically strong protagonist can do.
Got it. Now, the medieval setting, what inspired that?
Oh, that's I'm retired now. I was an elementary school teacher for many years, and my favorite subject to teach was medieval time.
Got it.
So that's why it was easy for me to pick that as a setting.
Got it. Thank you. And I do want to touch on one thing you introduced that was unusual for most stories about medieval, is you introduced a Japanese warrior character. Was that because of that in medieval time they mixed, or was it just an inspirational hit?
Yeah, he's introduced actually 10 years earlier in the story, in part one, where he's quite accidentally drawn into a conflict of survival of this country of Valor. He returns 10 years later when Ripley has grown up and she's lost her parents. He is not a Mr. Miyata from the Karate Kid. He's not the kind janitor who's looking after, the kid who wants to learn how to defend himself. He wants nothing to do with Ripley. He's motivated by greed. He's definitely in the Japanese society. It's patriarchal, right to the core. And so these two are butting heads all through the story.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, Johanna, your turn, please.
Yes, my screenplay is about a female fighter, boxer, who is seeking justice and wants to avenge her father's death in the ring by getting into a fight or taking a fight where all odds are against her.
Got it. And excellent. Now, you went the opposite way as Dylan, in the sense that most of the fighting is in the ring, and very well done, very driven. And did you get inspired to put a woman in that situation, or did it lead through your own experiences?
Yeah, I was a boxer, and I had a professional boxing license in Nevada. And I was also teaching, training people. So there's a lot of stuff that actually happened, but, in a fictionalized way in my script.
Absolutely. Now, and the conflict of her going, it's kind of a revenge kind of story. How were you able to incorporate that in the boxing world? Through, again, you use very exciting set pieces. Did anything inspire you to get there?
Well, boxing is a great sport, but a crooked business. So it's kind of not a big stretch to do this revenge. There are shady characters always involved, and so that was sort of basis. People I known, and people want to make quickly big bucks, and are willing to do sort of cut corners to get there. So that was sort of the basis on that.
All right, beautiful. Great script. Thank you so much. Tishia?
So Between the Flames is about a woman who gets a chance to be on a hotshot crew during the summer between college, and she's thrown into this world that is so completely different than anything she's ever been in. And it's her rookie year.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I think if you would tell people what hotshot means.
Okay, a hotshot crew, it's kind of a 1A firefighting crew for wildland fires.
Thank you.
We're actually, people confuse us with smoke jumpers. We're actually above the smoke jumpers as far as the danger that they jump on small fires to put out from airplanes, and we go to the big fires. So everyone always calls us smoke jumpers, but we're not. We come bail them out when they lose the fire. So it's it's kind of funny.
Thank you. And I really apologize interrupting, but I realized.
No, that's okay.
A hotshot could mean a lot of things, but it's an incredible team. Now, you said several times we, so obviously personal experience is what inspired this script?
Yeah, actually, I fought fires for 5 years, wow. 2 on the hotshot crew, and then I was a crew foreman on an engine with the regular crews. It was just an amazing time to be on a crew. I mean, it was the 80s, and so when you were in college and you're looking for a job, it's either a waitress or, camp recreation, putting up with bratty kids, and this was like a dream come true. So getting to be on a hotshot crew is just something I can never forget. And the minute I stepped into those doors, I knew I was going to write a screenplay about it, just because nobody knows what a hotshot is. Right. And nobody knows it from a female point of view. Like all the movies, smoke jumpers, hotshots, always from a male point of view. So there were actually a lot of females that fought, but nobody really knows that.
Yes. One of the things we love about the festival is it brings to the forefront a lot of things I didn't know that. We get that a lot, we have these documentaries, and the idea that people don't think that female firefighters exist, it's like, no. So your script really brings that forward.
Well, thank you. It was fun to write. I've done so many different versions of it, and I think this one is my favorite version. So,
well, again, I haven't read the others, but this one's fabulous. So
thank you.
It's great. Excellent. Thank you all very much for this. So now, again, it can be a little more free form if you guys have thoughts, but we'll start with Dylan in terms of what your other projects are, if you're working on anything, and then a basic approach to writing. So go ahead, Dylan.
I am always writing. That is something I've been doing since I was a child, and I make films with people here. I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and I have a group of people that we make movies with.
Awesome.
And that's a very kind of indie scene, and I also make stuff for like YouTube and smaller things like that. And for my process, because this is a thing I'm always doing, I make sure I have what a lot of people have, where you do it every day. I get up at 4:30 in the morning and I write for about an hour and a half. And then if there's time later on in the day, I'll find some time for that as well, because I have a job and pay bills and do all the things that everyone else does. And usually my process for working on these projects is I'll come in with the seed of an idea that I'm really excited about, and that will lead quite quickly to an outline, and then the outline will germinate for a while, several months. Of me working, thinking that, and then I'll write a first draft, and then that will work for a little while. And lately, the big change in how I work, and something for people, I've been recommending this that people try, is in that early stage, after I have the outline, I started telling people I know the story. This is not something I used to do. I used to be very protective of it. Before I had the screenplay, I didn't want to tell anyone the story because I was worried their influence would change the idea and take it away from me. And now I'm doing it on purpose because I'm finding the difficulty of doing it is refining the work. It's kind of this trial by fire, and instead of having the ideas be killed, I'm finding, what I really meant was this and this and this and this, and it's very much clarifying, and it's made the entire process, I'll be much more enjoyable.
Oh, good. And articulating does help focus all these millions of ideas that is in one's head, right? So that by having to articulate it does focus it. Very good. Thank you so much. That's very insightful. Thoren?
I've been working on getting the novel version of the story completed. It was published in January now. I'm working on the second book. Depending if there's any interest on the screenplay, then other screenplays will follow. But it is my intention to write it's a trilogy, and so I still have 2 more books to write.
Wow. And your source of inspiration, or how you approach the creative process?
I would often get thoughts either driving or sometimes just dream about.
Sure.
I love the movies and TV and the genre. I decided I should write these things down because I often would forget them. And these collection of thoughts, these pages of collections of thoughts, I got enough here to start something. So I started writing a story.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Johanna?
Yeah, I've been also writing, all my life. I think the first school play I did, I was 11 or 12 or something like that.
Right.
And I also write for work. I'm a journalist and reporter, so it's a little bit challenging to be then doing writing on the side as well. It's a little bit too much sometimes. So I have gaps, when I do these projects. There are long gaps between, but I do have a children's book that I would like to develop into animated series. Then I have a Vietnam War movie screenplay that I'm working also based on real story, and a murder mystery / detective story also based on real story. So there's a bunch of stuff, and I'm developing a sci-fi as well. So.
Wow, so you're just being bombarded with ideas, it sounds like. That's great.
Yes. And kind of what Dylan was saying, that I'm also telling people about the ideas, and just hearing yourself explain it helps the process, and it sort of clarifies, because then people ask questions and I'm like, I didn't think about that. And so it's very helpful. Yeah.
No, that's a good point, Dylan, and you bring up. It's a lot of writers are very covetous of it, but it does help restrict where your brain can go with someone, even if they ask an innocent question. Well, what about the dog? And somebody going, oh my gosh, So I think that both of you, it's a brilliant approach. Thank you very much, Johanna. Tishia.
So I went back to writing. I started actually when I was on the Hot Shot crew writing a screenplay, and it was kind of fun because everyone would ask me, when we were in fire camp, well, what's the next scene? What's going to be next? And so, it did pretty good. And then, as you go on in life, you get different jobs, you move, and the opportunities for screenplays back then were so limited. It was so hard to get anybody to read your screenplay. You didn't have all the contests you have now and the film festivals. So for a while, I took a break, and then I wrote a book, and Lately, I work all night in an ER, and I just get bored to tears when we don't have any patients. And so it's kind of like I needed something to do. So I decided to go back to writing. So I use most of my writing time is when we're not doing anything. I sit down and I got a laptop, I just start going. So that's where I do my best writing.
I got it. And then it makes sense. Your inspiration then comes from your past experiences, and then you have the time. Correct me if I'm wrong, for all four of you. It's the idea that I've had a lot of people come up going, oh yeah, I want to write. And my attitude is, you need to write, you have to write, or don't do it, because it's too hard. Just to wanna, oh, that sounds fun. No, what's a great description is writing's easy, just lean against the keyboard till blood comes out of your fingers. I mean, and so that drive to write, because, correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys have a different perception, but especially with scripts, you're not going to get a whole ton of accolades,
No,
Yeah.
you generally don't. And I find that with storytelling in general, whatever format you really decide to do with that, the thing that keeps people coming back to it for years, and like they can go away, they can do another job, and then they're going to come back to this, is it's something I've found that people have as part of their psyche of who they are, that's just how they relate to the world. It's how they interact with the world. If they're just having a conversation with somebody, they're going to start telling a story. They're going to start being in there, and it's like a compunction. And so that if you have free time, it's what you choose to do with your free time. Other people are like, I'm going to go climb a mountain. I'm going to go fish in a lake. I'm like, no, I'm going to go write a story. I'm going to go do that. And that's going to be my entertainment for myself. That's what I'm going to do.
Exactly. It's like Tishia, other people will play solitaire or something probably on the downtimes, and you're busy writing. And even there are times I'm sure where, I'm not going to write anymore. And no, it comes back and slaps you upside the head, So anyway, I want to thank you guys for incredible screenplays, and I wish them all the great success. Thank you for taking the time this afternoon to talk. You guys rock. And we look forward to hearing more and more about you guys and your great successes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Artemis Film Festival.
Yes, very much.
Yes.
Thank you. Melanie?
Y'all are going to hate me. Is it possible that you can go one more round of questions? Do you guys mind?
No, it's fine.
Not at all.
Okay for me.
Yeah, no. Can I'd like to get to the next round in about 6-7 minutes. Can we do that?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. I thought I had hit my time limit. Well, actually, since we have 6 or 7 minutes, that's not a ton of time, So how about, do any of you four have questions for each other? Do you have any? You don't.
Sorry, it doesn't. I mean, if it goes longer than 6 or 7 minutes.
I got that.
Let it be organic.
Okay, we're going to try again here. So we have a few minutes left. I just thought I'd ask if you guys have any questions for each other, or any curiosities, or any ideas that I didn't touch on that you'd like to express. Dylan, you talk last, so all of you, anyone who wants to talk, go for it. Tishia?
I just wanted to point out that it goes back to the last question with not writing or writing. I've ran into that same question where people always say, "Oh, I want to be a writer," and you just start doing it. And when you stop, it feels like a part of your soul just went somewhere else.
Yes.
So it's like you can't wait to get back to it. And just watching people in life just brings in so many stories. So there's all this material, and all you have to do is have the time and the ability to just sit down and start doing it. So that's.
Thank you.
Kind of fascinating.
Yeah, and kind of when we're talking about your ideas to other people, I don't really worry about them stealing my ideas because I know how hard it is to write, so they're not going to do it. So there's no worries about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good
It's
luck.
not always pleasant.
Yeah. Here's a great idea. Try to write it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
I found that when if somebody else is going to write the same idea as you, it's going to be very different. They're just going to have a very different version. They're not going to speak with your voice. They're not going to do it the way you do it. So even if the two of you are both want to write about fighters, as you and I have done,
Right.
we're going to tell very, very different stories about that.
Well,
Because we're different
remakes.
people.
A remake of a movie, even if they're trying to be honest to it or whatever, their voices are going to come off differently. Robert, do you have a throw out you want to hit?
And nothing comes to mind.
Okay,
Sorry.
sorry. I didn't mean to put you on the spot. No problem.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've thought of is when people are talking about writing is that I know, forgive me, but, control freak writers and then others free form. But what I find consistent is that once the characters become, let's call it three-dimensional in your head, for me, they start taking over. It's like, no, I'm not going to say that. Or no, I'm not going to, wait a minute. What do you mean you're not going to do it? I need you to do this. And they just say, no. Do you guys find that to be true with your characters?
I find, because I'm often working directly with actors, and I hit that stage of production, that you kind of go through phases. Like you have your first phase where they're talking to you and they're telling you the story the first time. So you're just kind of figuring it out. And then they solidify and you're like, okay, this character talks like this. This is who they are. This is what they are. But then when an actor comes in and embodies it, they bring something to it and you're willing to have some changes. I find if you're at any of these stages, if you're too precious, if you're too much like, this is the way it is and it's not going to change, it kind of dies.
Yes.
And it stops having a life. But if you're willing to not sweat a comma and not sweat that they use it, but you still to that same point, then it grows and it becomes so much more exciting and so much more alive. Right. So the whole way along from the time you start sitting down until the time that the audience is watching it, that is all writing time. That's all of it. That's all part of the screenwriting process. And it's wonderful and exciting and glorious to see the actors saying your words and see what they're bringing to it and see what they're doing.
Yes. Robert, you seemed emphatic on that question about the characters taking over.
Yeah. Writing is all about revision. I don't need to tell that to any of the writers here on the screen. It's revision. And, it's, I used to think that they were my ideas that needed to be changed, that, inspired the changes. And it was my characters talking to me, because I would never do that. I would never say that. Why is the plot going this direction? Upside the head, smarten up, Bob, or Thor. Yeah, my characters talk to me. That was it's very important in the development of my story.
Exactly. Anybody else on that?
That's true. I remember when you finish your first screenplay and you think it's the best thing in the world and everybody's just going to love it. And then you step away from it and then you come back and you read it and go, oh my God, that is just awful. And then, the revisions.
Yeah. Johanna?
And also wanted to point out, yes, that, screenplay is really a blueprint for the movie. So, you can't be too attached to certain things. But, I got a lot of comments at some point that, but maybe if she's a kickboxer. That's where I draw the line.
Well, my challenge is that, people will offer suggestions. And if it's integral to what or the characters are already writing, I can be pretty easygoing about that. But when they say, I think you need an elephant in there, it's like, then you write a script about an elephant. I didn't put an elephant in there. But one thing that Dylan touched on is that there is a total. I mean, he's more comfortable with it because he's done it a lot. But I think a lot of writers, you're alone in the room with your characters and stuff. When it goes out into the world, then that interpretation. And, first you have producers who have their ideas, and then, directors come in, and then, of course, the actors start saying these words, and you're going, no, it should be the dog went over there, not the dog went over there, and you got to let all that go, and having that ego over, this is my creation, but they're changing it, can be difficult. Do you guys, Dylan, I'm not including you because you've actually done it, but for you guys, have you kind of girded your loins, if you will, for the idea that people will come in and want to adjust or say it wrong. However you guys, anything?
I've learned that through another screenplay I was writing where I got some really helpful feedback, and then I would kind of go and look at it and go, yeah, I can understand that. So you rewrite it, and then you get more feedback, and then you rewrite it. And it turns out to be good in some ways, but sometimes you can go too far.
Yes.
So you do have to have a line where your characters stay in a balance of the feedback and what you're going to do with it. So it can be helpful, and sometimes it can take you away from who your characters really are. So if you can balance that, that's the best thing. Not too much this way or too much this way, but to make it the best thing it can be.
Very much so. Johanna, do you agree or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm always listening to what anybody, has to say, but then you have to take it with the grain of salt and be like, okay, does this really make sense from a screenplay? But it's helpful to ask advice, if you are stuck in some specific spot, and then you can get sort of brainstorming with some people, and, you might find the right way to continue.
Exactly. And then you have the practical. Me personally, I write this brilliant thing, and then to shoot it, it's like, well, we can't shoot it here because we don't have the money, so you got to readjust. How do you get the same impact with a different location or a different action sequence? You have, Dylan, you have it in the alley, and that alley suddenly becomes unavailable, so now you're in a bar, or whatever, or vice versa.
I find with and this is where telling the story to other people has been just so wonderful, because you find out what are the moments, the beats that have to be in there. What do you have to convey to the audience? What matters in the scene? What is the point in this scene where everything turns? What's our reversal? What's our little moment right there? And so not to discredit what we do, but the artistry of how you got there and all of that becomes much more malleable. Yeah. It's not window dressing, but it's the necessary to getting to that moment. And the clearer you are on what the moment is of that scene, what is the turning point, the easier it is to then alter the surroundings of it, to trim, to switch locations, now it's in a car instead of on a street. Now she just pulls an Indiana Jones and punches the guy in the face, and he falls down, and we carry on. We're done.
Again, the best example, right, is Spielberg. The shark sank so that he couldn't use a shark, and it turns out to be the best thing that ever happened to that damn movie. And so you have to be open and have, and it is a genius where you are given lemons and you can't make lemonade. You got to make something else out of those lemons, so you figure it out, you tap dance. And that is part of, as you say, it is integral to the writing. Again, in a perfect world, you sit alone in a room and write, and it's brilliant, and you pass it out and make millions of dollars. And maybe people can do that. But I think you have to be open to life coming up and going, no.
Yeah, but to be fair, and to say this thing, like, the idea is that chance favors the prepared mind. Exactly. There isn't going to be anyone else on the set who's going to understand the story better than the screenwriter, flat out. They're just going to know it better. They lived it. They've been there. They've done all the work. And then the second person's the director, and then you get the actors, and then you get everybody else. Right. And our job is communicating our idea and the vision that we have. And the better we are at that, the better the story comes out in the end, because it's translated through all these people.
Exactly.
And so when it's wrong, or you defend it and you say that's wrong. That is not what we're doing here. Because again, you understand what matters in the scene. Right. And if they suddenly say it needs to have a giant metal spider, you get to say no.
Right. Okay. Any last thoughts from anybody else?
I've had one comment that the medieval setting that I've chosen is just too expensive, for either a TV series or for a movie. And that might be one thing that a director or a producer might say has to change if I handed off my script to someone. So that's a little discouraging.
It can be, but again, for me, 100 years ago when I would ask someone out, right, and they say I have to wash my hair, I heard no. It wasn't anything to do with the hair. So the thing to remember is that someone might say, oh, we can't afford it, but hello, Game of Thrones, Spartacus, TV series. There's too many exceptions. So they're just saying no. You got to just say thank you very much and find someone who has the passion to go, oh my God, we have to make this. And if we do everything in green screen, or, they'll figure it out if they want to do it. But if they don't want to do it, they'll pick any excuse. The amount of times I got, I'm sorry, it's a woman in the lead, we can't do it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, goodbye. And I'm not going to convince them, because then they're going to do it half-assed. So it's like, if they don't see the vision of a female lead, goodbye, I'll go somewhere else. And that's
the last 10 years in terms of females being in the lead and being kick-ass, it's just taken off.
Yes.
I just think of Atomic Blonde or the Road Warrior or Black Widow in the Avengers, even going as far back as Linda Hamilton and Terminator, Evangeline Lilly in The Hobbit. I mean, they're starting to rise in popularity and in number.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is back in the 80s where I got a lot of that, no, female leads aren't going to work. But one reason why the Artemis Film Festival came around was we wanted to bring to attention that these are commercial, exciting, thrilling, with women in the leads. They work and audiences like them. And it was funny, recently after we started this, then Wonder Woman came out, then Atomic Blonde came out, so we can't take credit for it, but we are kind of going, yeah, we helped raise the consciousness. Anyway, so thank
Very
you.
good.
I believe now I can say thank you guys so much. Your scripts are amazing, and I really wish them the greatest success. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank
Good
you
to
for
meet
the
all of you.
festival.